Well, we have arrived at the end. The final season of Doctor Who with Tom Baker as the Doctor. But the moment has been prepared for. We start on Earth, at the beach, after a brand new title sequence featuring music that I recognize from my DVDs of Doctor Who. We have Romana, K9, slightly waterlogged, and the Doctor in a new burgundy outfit trying to relax at the beach. But the beach just isn't for them. So they go to a toxic world with a resort encased in a bubble called the Leisure Hive. But all is not perfect at the Hive, because some young buck has started developing technology that uses tachyons to manipulate matter. And he demonstrates it. Unfortunately, it's a fake projection because they still haven't figured it out yet. Not fully. And the clock is ticking because this young buck's people not only are an endangered species, but their clocks are very odd in that they run slow until towards the very end of their lives, when suddenly they speed up. So when the two head representatives of the Leisure Hive start to get a little older, including the mother of the young buck, they have to pass on their titles to this new guy who has a lot of radical ideas. It's revealed that he wants to declare war on the lizard species that originally they warred against, resulting in the toxification of their planet, and who now want to buy that planet because the lizards find it comfortable, whereas the original inhabitants would now be killed by it. In comes the Doctor and Romana, with K9 being left behind because he got a little waterlogged, and, well, let's just say robots and water don't mix, unless they're specially designed for it, which K9 is not. Eventually, the young buck's plans are revealed after several deaths, and even the reveal of two of the Earth representatives that want to hear the proposal of the young buck, but are actually rogue lizards whose machinations are not approved of by the head lizard. But the young buck just wants to declare war again, so he uses the unstable machine to create clones of himself, because he himself is a sort of clone. Apparently, the original experiment with tachyons was to restore his race via pseudo-cloning, but it only worked on him, and it took him forever to come of age. But now he's of age, and with his father dead and his mother barely clinging to life, he takes over and tries to clone himself, after disposing of the Doctor. But in reality, the Doctor pulled a fast one. The clones are actually clones of the Doctor that quickly fade away after they've done their job. And when the young buck tries again, his mother gets put in the machine with him, and the Doctor smashes said machine in the process, luckily restoring the mother to her fit self and her son to a baby. So now the head lizard and she can sort out this mess and hopefully raise the kid right. Well, the mom, not the lizard. After that, they have to deal with a creature called Megalos, the last of his kind. and he's a cactus. Like just a regular cactus, except he can talk to people. The Doctor and Romana decide to check out a planet near Meglos' desolate homeworld in order to meet up with an old friend of said Doctor. Only the jungle on the planet has become very, very aggressive, forcing the inhabitants to live underground, at the mercy of a power source that some of them worship as a deity, including a character played by the actress who played Barbara. Yes, Barbara is back, only she's not Barbara. She's a priestess. The actress playing a priestess, by the way. Unfortunately, some pirates have brought a hapless earthling to Meglos' homeworld and fused him with Meglos, who then disguises himself as the Doctor in order to gain access to the power source, which they call a dodecahedron, which is basically a 12-sided shape. Dungeons and Dragons players recognize that as one of their dies. Anyway, Meglos manages to get the power source and get away, promising the pirates riches, but he doesn't intend to deliver. Since when can you trust a cactus? And the Doctor and Romana are left holding the bag. Thankfully, they repaired K9 enough for him to help, but his power source is still a little wonky. Unfortunately, Meglos plans to use the power source coupled with these screens that are part of the last structure on his world as a basic death ray. The pirate leader, in revenge for some of the inhabitants of the jungle world killing his troops, he wants that to be the first planet that gets consumed by the death ray. Luckily, the Doctor manages to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, yet again, and turn the beam inward, destroying the planet and all the bad guys on it. And the human, who was bonded to Meglos, manages to free himself through sheer willpower. Score 1 for human willpower. Unfortunately, during the battle with the pirates, the priestess, who eventually sees reason, gets killed when she steps in front of the blast meant for Romana. So she goes out on a high note. And the Doctor, Romana, K9, and the human, who gets dropped off on Earth in time to see the wife, are off. Because it seems the Doctor is being called back to Gallifrey. Only they don't quite make it the whole way there. They get stuck in something called E-space, which is different from our universe, N-space. They end up at the coordinates of Gallifrey, only it's not Gallifrey. It's this jungle world where these colonists have set up shop. Only there's a bit of a rift. There are rebels who believe that hiding inside the original colony ship during a time of mists, which is happening right now, is foolish. And so they hide out in a cave. And one guy is very significant because he's the brother of a young buck who wants to be like his brother, only he's been brought up to be a cog in the machine of the colony. And said cog's name is Adric. Now, honestly, this season Adric hasn't been as annoying, to me at least, as people have said he is. Maybe he gets more annoying in later seasons, but Honestly, I just didn't hate the kid. He's actually trying to help sometimes. And over the course of the season, he sort of becomes the Doctor's apprentice slash pseudo little brother. At least that's how the Doctor acts towards him, like a big brother. Also, add into the mix these weird spiders that have begun hatching from the melons that the colonists used to survive, and these frogmen that start to come out of the bog as the mist starts to form. But the Doctor realizes that the mist is non-toxic. I mean, that's the whole reason that the colonists go back to their spaceship. Ultimately, it's revealed that the colonists, the frogmen, and the spiders all share the same DNA. There was some sort of rapid evolutionary process going on. And the ship was a falsehood. Turns out the people were on their home planet the whole time. But in order to make room for the frogmen, who are starting to develop their own forms of technology, including tool use and semi-complex thought, the colonists are compelled to leave once the Doctor shows them how to fly their ship, because they don't actually know how to do it. They've just been taking it apart and putting it back together for 400,000 generations. So, yeah. Ultimately, the Doctor helps them realize that the entropy that they're experiencing is going to lead to ruin if they don't start to do something. Sadly, when the frogmen start attacking the ship, Adric's brother is killed. So he decides to stow away in the TARDIS when the Doctor and Romana and K9 leave. Then they head to another world in E-space, which is visually that of a Renaissance era, but does have some technology. Although it's sequestered in a spaceship which is designed to look like a tower. Basically, it's a rocket. The lower class humanoids are forbidden from even learning to read. They just work, toil, and are taken to the tower, never to be seen again, along with the son of the head of the village. The Doctor and Romana are mistaken for upper class, and they're given some hospitality, but when the king, queen, and advisor find out what's going on, they immediately send for them. And it's revealed that the king, queen, and advisor are vampires. They used to be human colonists from Earth. Or no, scratch that. Human survey team members from Earth. And they ended up in E-space and came across a vampire king. Now, this is not a normal vampire. Turns out the original vampires were giants who could suck the life out of a whole planet. And the Time Lords fought them and beat them, sending huge pieces of steel through their hearts, rather than the normal way, because, like I said, the original vampires were much, much bigger. And it so sickened them, the brutality they had to embrace, that they became pretty pacifistic up until the Daleks showed up. Unfortunately, the king vampire got away. Found his way to E-space and buried himself in the planet. And then come the hapless humans, who ultimately decide to side with him. They take the humanoids that were on the planet and condition them to be like sheep. Except for a few rebels who found some of the discarded technology from the rocket. They feed the beast blood and are kept immortal so long as they follow the rules of being a vampire. They even decide to turn Adric into a vampire and feed Romana and the Doctor to their deity. Luckily, with help from some of the rebel peasants, the Doctor manages to activate a part of the rocket to go right up and come right back down, acting as the steel stake that his ancestors used against the vampire hordes. And once the vampire is defeated, his minions crumble to dust. So hopefully now, with the little bit of technology that they have, the peasants can uplift themselves into a more industrious society. After that, the TARDIS ends up in a space between spaces. Literally, they're stuck between east space and end space, along with a ship made of neutron star material, because its engines are damaged and its navigator decides to turn against the captain. But that's good, because the navigator's species, these lion-looking dudes, are slaves. Because they're time-sensitive, they can navigate in the space between spaces, and that makes them valuable to the humans. Ironically, the lion-looking dudes were once the masters, and the humans were once the slaves. But they somehow managed to build robots to take advantage of a weakness that the lion-looking people had and turn the tables on them. Unfortunately, history is repeating itself. But the Doctor, Romana, Adric, and a slightly malfunctioning K9 stumble across the whole situation after Romana gets taken prisoner to be used as a new navigator, and all she finds is this gate that leads back to East Space, namely the territory of the Lion people, where wounds that are fresh are instantly healed, even faster than Atric's fast healing ability. Except for machines who have to stay in the Lion people's territory in order to stay fixed. Unless, of course, the Doctor bothered to fix K9 the old-fashioned way. Ultimately, when the captain of the ship manages to get all his people killed by trying to break free of the nowhere space, the Doctor and Romana and Adric free the captive lion people, and they're able to go back to their home. And Romana decides she's found a calling. She helps the lion people get Time Lord technology, and they help her in various ways. And she decides to free the rest of the enslaved lion people, because there are more out there, most likely. And since K9 could only stay fixed for some reason by staying in the lion people's territory, both Romana and K9 decide to stay, leaving the Doctor and Adric to travel on their own. Ultimately, Adric and the Doctor manage to get out of E-space, only to come across a world called Traken, where the keeper of the Traken Empire, an actual good empire that is so good and prosperous and all that gushy stuff that evil literally can't exist in their territory, he asks for help because apparently evil found a way in. A statue descends into this garden area that's been set aside for evil people to maybe see the error of their ways. And a young woman starts tending to the statue, even talking to it, treating it as a deity of some sort. Later in life, she marries the next in line to be keeper and becomes a stepmother to his daughter, a woman named Nissa. But all is not as it seems, because turns out the statue isn't a statue. It's not even a robot. It's a vessel of some sort for a decayed creature that takes over the stepmother's mind and tricks everyone around her into believing the Doctor and Adric are enemies, and tricks everyone into believing the Doctor has ensnared the next keeper in line, so she ultimately becomes keeper. But when she sits on the throne of power, the decayed creature and his vessel teleport away from where they were to swap places with her, thus destroying her body in the process. And, of note, when the vessel teleported, it sounded like the TARDIS. Dun dun dun. You see where I'm going with this? Decayed creature, something that makes a TARDIS sound? Yep, the creature is the Master. Finally, he's back and just as corpseified as ever. He's barely hanging on to his last regeneration, and he hopes to use the power of the Keeper, which spans an empire, to get back to his old self. Luckily, the Doctor manages to thwart him with a bit of help from both Adric and Nissa. But unfortunately, the Master had one trick up his sleeve, a second TARDIS in the shape of a clock, which Nissa's father, played by Anthony Ainley, touches, which allows the Master to bond with his body and steal it. And so we have a new permanent actor for the Master, Anthony Ainley, who later in the series does ham it up a bit because he was told to, but starts out kind of sinister like Roger Delgado's Master. Ultimately, the Doctor and Adric need to fix the TARDIS yet again, this time going to Logopolis. But first, a quick stop on Earth to get measurements from an actual police box, so the Doctor can get the Logopolins to help him restore the chameleon circuit on the TARDIS. Unfortunately, the Master sets a trap which briefly ensnares the Doctor and Adric, and also accidentally ensnares this Australian stewardess in training named Tegan. And the Master kills Tegan's poor aunt and a police officer, and then departs. Once the Doctor and Adric and Tegan finally get free of the trap. And they have to briefly explain to the police that the doctor had nothing to do with what happened to the police officer who the master had snared, or what happened to Tegan's poor aunt. Anyway, the trio end up on Logopolis, a planet of deep thinkers and humanoid calculators who can only do their math in their heads because, as it turns out, their version of math actually affects the fabric of reality itself. They've even set up a copy of this communications network from Earth to do their work, which, as it turns out, is keeping the universe from imploding on itself due to entropy. There's that word again, entropy. Anyway, the doctor nearly gets crushed to death when the master screws up some of the computations meant for the chameleon circuit and uses that as a distraction in order to kill some of the Logopolins and disrupt the calculations of the rest of them, which was not a good thing. He even tricks Nyssa into believing he's still her father and gives her a bracelet which, as it turns out, can control her muscles by force. And she's brought along by a friend to Logopolis to help further mess with the doctor. Luckily, it's revealed that, the master is not her father anymore. And she takes it kind of well, kind of not well. But ultimately proves helpful. To the doctor, that is. Because after the master messes with the Logopolins enough, the entropy starts to kick in. Because apparently the universe is past the point of collapse. And the Logopolins were using the array to generate holes into other spaces, including E-space, which is what started this whole mess, in order to keep the universe from collapsing. But with them gone, it's all going to pot. So, reluctantly, the doctor has to team up with the master one more time to try to fix things. There are certain computations in the replica computer that will work if they can get it to a working array, which is on Earth. So, while the aforementioned friend takes Nyssa, Tegan, and Adric away from the danger zone in the TARDIS, the Doctor and the Master take the Master's TARDIS to Earth to use the array that's there. And while they do set things up to help, the Master predictably betrays the Doctor. And he basically puts a gun to the universe's head and demands to be given complete control of everything everywhere. He has the power to save the universe or crush it. Luckily, the Doctor knows just what to break in order to thwart the Master without screwing up the plan to fix everything, which he does. Unfortunately, the Doctor gets cornered. He ends up hanging by a rope on top of the massive dish array after the Master rotates everything, including the bridge that he and the Doctor were fighting on. And after that, he escapes in his TARDIS, while the Doctor is left to confront some guards who were at the array, who the Doctor and the Master had to evade in order to get to the array. And The doctor has been dreading something that's been coming. This weird albino has been following them. He's the one who brought Nissa to Logopolis. He talked to the doctor on a bridge, and the moment the doctor has been dreading starts to unfold, which causes him to think about all the companions that have come and gone. And ultimately, the doctor decides to fall. And he lands pretty hard. I mean, he's landed hard before, but this time it's serious. That array is huge, and he fell quite a distance. And ultimately, he looks at his current companions, Nissa, Tegan, Atric, and with a smile, he comments that this is the end, but the moment has been prepared for. And so, the albino that's been tailing him for so long finally combines with him in order to regenerate into Colin Baker, the youngest doctor ever. At least until Matt Smith shows up. But that's for another day. Until next time, this is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, celery not only is a good nerve tonic, it also makes for a heck of a boutonniere. Geronimo.